Hello, I'm Matt, and this Loxley Quality Time tutorial is to help you with this painting, Old Windmill from the Kachilio collection. If you haven't already watched our techniques tutorial videos, please have a look at them before starting your project. They give you some valuable information about painting with the quality time range and help you get the most out of your quality time. This video contains specific information about your chosen painting, but we assume that you're already familiar with the general techniques covered in our tutorial videos. Old Windmill features one of Norfolk's windmills, which were once numerous in this area during the 14th and 15th century. The mills were used largely for milling corn into flour, with some used for other industrial activities and even pumping water, particularly here on the Broads. These mills were often placed next to waterways as a means of transporting produce to and from them. So with this painting, I'm going to start with the sky, and there is a video on painting skies, one of the technique videos, which I advise you to look at before starting your painting. And I'm mainly white here, mixed with a little bit of blue. I'm using a bit more white up to the windmill blades here, and I'm actually going to paint over with this more paler blue, because the blades themselves are almost the same colour. Working my way across this sky. It's important that you don't go over the building, over the windmill, so I'm just cutting right up to it. Don't worry too much if at this stage the sky is a bit patchy, and you can paint over the trees. And then you'll notice that down towards the horizon the sky is paler, so I'm mixing more white with my mix here, just coming down to the horizon. It's okay to paint over these trees because you'll see through them, see through the paint to paint over them later. Just working my way across here, and again paler colours where the blades are here, just a paler shade of blue. It's interesting that wind power is being harnessed again for electricity. I think all these years ago when these windmills were built, they were used for getting the wind power and converting it into energy, and it's coming back again now all these years later. Just put a bit more white where this cloud area is. Don't want that too blue. I'm now going to paint this path, and I've mixed up mainly white with just a small bit of yellow, and I'm just painting horizontally like this creamy colour. Just painting around the grass area, little tufts of grass, and around these posts. I'm going to do the grass next, and you'll notice from your photo at the back here the grass is more paler, so I'm just putting in some yellow first along the back here, and then I'm going to mix green with the yellow for this. So the grass, painting around these railings, and I'm finishing the grass in the direction which it grows. So the brush strokes are, even if you do some horizontal brush strokes to fill in the paint, if you just finish the brush strokes the way the grass grows, makes it look more real. You can actually use the brush strokes to look like the grass, the blades of grass. There is a technique video on painting foliage and trees, and that covers things like grass, and I'm actually getting slightly different shades of green, which is good because it's quite rough grass, so you can see these textures in it from the photo. And this bit of grass here as well, just growing by the path there. Just painting these trees now with the green. This is all part of stage one. Trying not to get it on the building's house there. I'm now going to paint these barns using brown, which I've mixed from red and green. I've actually added a bit of water so it's not too overpowering the colour, and I'm finishing the brush strokes horizontally because it's like a timber barn, and that's the way the grain's running. And that bit of roof there, and this roof. For this particular building I've added a bit of yellow to the colour. This is brown, but then I've added yellow to make it a bit lighter. And then I go to these buildings are a bit darker. Again, I've got a bit of water with this so that it goes on a bit easier. I'm now doing the body of the main building of the windmill, and I've mixed this colour with blue and red, and then mostly white, and I'm just working around the shape of this windmill, following the natural curve of the architecture. And even if I have to brush vertically, I finish the brush strokes horizontally, the way that the bricks would run, and just working it around like this. Careful not to go over the edges. I love blocking in this colour. And towards the middle I'm just adding a little bit of white to the mixture so that gives it the dimension. So I'm painting the water here now, and I've mixed up this colour by mixing brown, red and green, and then mixing 80% white with it. And I'm doing the brush strokes horizontally for the water, working up to this edge here, and then going to use the same colour, and where the edge of the water I'm using vertical brush strokes. You can still see the outlines showing through the paint here, which is what I want. And then just following this edge along like this. Be careful not to get it onto the path. So just mixed up some more brown for this roof, keeping the brush strokes horizontal again. I've left that ridge at the top. I'm going to do that a different shade of brown by adding a bit of yellow like this, just so I've kept that detail, and the chimney and that there. And this roof I'm going to do a lighter brown as well. The Norfolk Broads is made up of a mass of waterways. I think there's 7 rivers and 63 broads, as they call them, which is just another word for like a local word for a lake. I'm just doing the cap here with mostly white and a tiny bit of blue, just like a minutest bit of blue, so it's just like an off-white colour. The cap of this windmill actually turns round so it can face into the wind. So the whole top revolves according to which way the winds blow. It's quite a clever design. They used to do windmills where the whole windmills turn round, but doing it this way just with the cap turning means they can have a better, stronger construction than the base below. So now I'm on to stage 2, and I'm just working over these colours again. These cloud areas I'm just putting more pure white in and leaving brush strokes. Make it look like real clouds. So I'm just going over these vegetation, the trees and the grass with the stage 2. You can be a bit selective and don't have to paint the whole area. This makes it look more real. And again, the brush strokes are going vertically, slight angle like this. I've got a bit of water with it, with the paint, just to help it. I've mixed this brown for these wooden posts along the path here. With the very tip of your brush, just with gentle strokes, just like that. And for these railings as well. You can break off any time for a cup of tea, as long as you're not in the middle of a particular mix of colour or a particular part of the building. Like if you're in the middle of the sky or something, or this windmill, I'd keep going until you finish that. I'm just, with the brown, I'm just putting in some of these brick features, just like layers of paint building up. Now I'm going to do these trees. So I've mixed up some brown, and I'm just with the very tip of the hairs of the brush, some fine lines, putting these trees in where the outline is shown through the sky, so I can see those quite clearly to paint over them. So I'm just mixing some more brown. I'm going to paint in these sides of the water here, the bank or whatever you call it. I'm just doing stage 2 on this water. Near the bank here I'm using a darker shade of brown, and again going the same way as the water, so I'm horizontal with my brush strokes. Mix a bit of white with it for the... If you can see the brush strokes in the water, that's fine, because it just looks like the shimmering of the water there. Now I'm doing stage 2 of the main body of the windmill. This is again working with the brush strokes in the direction of the bricks. So I just cut down this edge and then bring it across. Carefully around the windows, really gentle brush strokes. That's what's so relaxing about it, is it's just little gentle brush strokes. I'm working paler towards the middle by not loading the brush as much, so there's less paint on the brush as I work it into the middle here, so it can still end up with the paler down the middle. And now for the bottom bit, and again just less paint on this area here, so it gives a bit more dimension. You can offload some of your paint. I'm now doing my stage 2 on the top of the windmill, with mostly white, just with a tiny bit of blue. Again working that with the natural shape of the top there. And then I'm adding just a bit of white, mainly white, into the blades of the windmill, just to make them stand out. You can spend as long as you want on this, just putting some of these white areas, give it dimension. And then I'm also going to put in the railings back in, which have almost disappeared. I've left an impression of where they are, but just with the these little brush strokes. Keep loading your brush so there's plenty of paint on there. If you do make these too big, these white lines, you can always go back in with some blue. This makes them stand out again. Gives nice contrast. I'm now doing stage 3 with the shadows, and I've mixed up my shadow colour using red and blue, and I've added a little bit of water because the windmill is very dark anyway, and just putting in these shadows. There is a technique video on painting shadows which will give you more information. This makes the picture come to life even more, makes it more three-dimensional. You can also use it to bring out some of the detail in the top of the windmill, this shadow colour, and in the sails as well. You can add some detail back in on this, the barn here. Just adding some shadows into the trees here, give it depth. I'm now on stage 4 of this painting and I'm adding the highlights here. There is more detail on highlights on the technique video on highlights. Just while I've got the white paint for the highlights, I'm just brushing in some white on this roof here just to give it a bit more character. It's just like the highlights are just like where the sun catches the buildings, gives it its final dimension. Using very fine brush strokes, just hardly tickling the surface at times. It's very gentle. Now I'm sort of putting these white areas back in here that we've sort of lost a bit, pushing those out like so. Adding these highlights across there. I've enjoyed this painting. Good luck with yours. Goodbye.